joining me in, dealing with these issues are my partners in this war for goodness. We have Valerie and we have Meta. They are all professionals when it comes to issues that relate to the mind. They can read your mind and then can tell what you're thinking before you could actually do it. So, Valerie and Meta, welcome you.
Thank you.
I wish I could read your mind.
Well, I have an antivirus that somehow blocks you from seeing what I'm thinking.
Right.
So, interestingly, today we are talking about violence. And before we could go anyway, one of the people that I mastered when I was in my history class was Napoleon Bonaparte. This guy said the only language understood by a savage is violence. So with this violence that is happening in the world, does it mean that the world is nothing but just brutal savages?
That's a very interesting perspective, but to a large extent, that's accurate. In that, when you look at animals in their very prime nature, they fight over things because they don't have the capacity to think about other different solutions. So when we look at that statement, it actually takes us back to our primitive nature when we didn't think the way we do now, when we had very limited resources at our disposal. We didn't have a lot of solutions to problems that we have, like we have now. So that statement in itself kind of takes us back to when somebody is becoming violent, they're actually saying, I have got no other options right now but to become violent. That's the only way that I think is going to make you do what I want you to do. So this is where the issue of violence comes through here. It's more about one person wanting to be in control of another. It's about forcing certain things that perhaps wouldn't ordinarily fit. So
Okay.
we're trying to force a round peg into a square hole. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. On that note, Meta, you're saying it's more like forcing. So you wanna be in control. So you do whatever it takes. So you are using the mask to enable you to be in control. But Valerie, from your end, violence. You are a therapist, and violence, you deal with these issues. A woman can come to you saying, my husband beats me every day. There's no day without getting a beating. So what is it that you understand by this element of violence and as something that is in our society?
I agree with Murtha in that there's an element of dominance and control to it. And then there is a goal to it as well. So we're saying, in trying to achieve something, maybe we've tried other methods or we don't know how to try other methods and then we resort to violence. Okay, so yes, I admit that in so many of the cases, there's actually problems we can identify. Then we can actually understand that, okay, violence has occurred now because of ABC. So like I'm saying, it can be issues going on in the relationship in which maybe ordinary conversation and trying to sort things out in the normal ways have failed. But in so many cases, as you said earlier on, it can be a result of provocation. And I know so many men who will say that violence is a reaction because of something that has happened, that has been said by the woman. And then that's their way of solving that problem at that particular time, or maybe that's a last resort or extreme reaction to something.
Okay, I don't mean to be mean, and please, people don't stone me. But I'm saying, okay, now that you put in an element of men and women, and there's the element of GPV, You know, it's a theme song for every year, every NGO has that in their calendar, GBV. Every school they've had GBV. In the radio, TV, GBV, something that everyone have heard about. So I'm saying this gender-based violence that has come into play, and we are saying in a way there is provocation, because there is a gender that is known for being the perpetrators of violence. There is a gender that always saying, no, we are the victims. So then in the middle we have provocation. Who is being provoked here? Because we are saying at times I'm trying to have, to apply my conflict resolution tactics. I'm talking to my lady, you know what? Baby, I don't like this 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't like 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the hell broke loose. Someone raises their voice up to the ceiling and they start calling names and they take on your weaknesses. How about that?
Okay, as I said, so many times you do acknowledge a problem, and at times you actually can agree that maybe there was provocation. And yes, I know the male side regards the female side as the ones that talk a lot, and men are generally quiet by nature. Okay, we might acknowledge that it applies sometimes, but not all the time. Okay, and probably that's another discussion for another day, because that it entails a lot. But if we focus on that now, it's as if we're trying to justify gender-based violence, or we're trying to excuse it. Of which, like I said, even when there is a problem, there is a proper way to fix it or to solve it, and then there are maladaptive methods of dealing with problems. So GBV is just another way of trying to deal with a problem, but that does not fix it in any way. Okay, so I think it's at the moment one of the biggest human rights violations around us. And it is a problem globally. So let's regard it as such. And then we actually try to understand why it happens, and then see if there are other ways of handling things differently that can actually help us as people and help us to preserve our relationships, our societies, and the nation at large.
Thank you very much. You know what? This is getting serious. Let's go and drink water, then we'll be back. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Right. Ngibona Miss Colin lapha bengisazama ukuwork out yabona ukuthi ngizama ukuthi ngikhiphe umkhaba nje ngibe fit. Belithi lisesibhedlela liyenza nesibhedlela. Hayi mama, liyakula yini? Uno admitiwe kwenzakalani? Uno andizolwe sizonke. Ubethe uzafika nomhla lapha ukhumele. Oh. Mama. Ulindele ukuthi ngene theater akumana kwenzakaleni. No. Linganje ukuthi ubele accident wathi nje ukuthi uqhamuka amathambo and all that stuff. What really happened, mom? So uCasper has the guts ukuthi ashayuna wami to understand ukuthi amphula amathambo. Bewehlule ukuthi bekhulumisana ngendaba yakho. No, mama, I'm not taking this lightly. Ushamna wami, how so over abusive ashamna wami? No, hayi bo, uzambona kahle lo mfana. No, uyenzeni? Hayi bo, akula umuntu othinta umnami ngisaphila mina. Akekho umuntu oyenza njalo mina ngisaphila. Othinta umuntu wasekhaya ngisaphila mina. Ngisadla hayi bo. Ngisazodila laye lo muntu ngizadila laye. Ngiyalitshela mama ngizodila laye lo muntu. Hayi bo ngizodila laye. Ngizodila laye phela. Hayi angibuye phela umntana ngiyodila laye. Angizodila laye lo muntu. Mama angeke ngishayele umna wami. Angeke ayenziwa lento ayenziwa lento. Ngisaphila mina ngisadla amabele angeke yenziwe lento. ngizodilana ngifuna ukumbulala lo mfana abakibo bazaba ngizamu-rearrange so ukuthi abakibo bengakwazi ukuthi uqala ngaphi ikhanda liqalisela ngaphi inyawo liqalisela kuphi ngizomtshiye ngokunye okay mama ngizokhulumana naye ngeke kuba kutondimira iwewe ndati ndoda podcast ngikalabazi inzwa shamari kamfana kampokwa kaCasper rumwano amanza ndam amrova nezuro manheru right now mama vari kuchipatara waiting nozi theatre dzadambuka mabhonzo whatever it is. I will deal with that boy handizive musha kounoseke handizive musha. What are you trying to say? Like my little sister, she's fighting for her life.
Look at my face, look at my hand. I cannot go to work now because of you. Not to work. How long have I been home? And this one dog bus. My hand, look at my face. Look at my face. Anzi kama ezechi ndimi makadzidzi kama ezechi
ndandisipo kuchutidziswa nezvakamba.
Okay sasa chamusoro tichanoizviseruno iwo warowanani ndinandinanzvadzika tokuda mubako please tinoorana musati nyanzvadziwa.
Well, we're back again. As we're drinking water, we're watching a skit. You know, in this skit, we came across a guy. He seems to be macho. I don't know. So this guy is receiving the news that his sister, you know, somehow got the dose that he's giving to the wife every day. She was beaten from left, right, center to the point that she was fractured and is now hospitalized. So now he's praying for blood. You know, I'm going to kill this guy. You know, that moment where you are being provoked. I'm going to kill this guy. Who does this to my sister? So now this guy wants to revenge the same act that he does to his wife every day. Meta, can you comment on that?
Yeah. So these are some of the problems that we don't seem to understand very clearly when some of us think we are responsible for keeping everyone else in line. This guy doesn't see what he's doing as a problem. Beating his wife up or going to try and beat the guy who beat his sister up. If you look at that, he's not limiting his violence to his wife, but violence is generally a way for him to solve problems. This is what I was talking about earlier on about control and trying to force matters. So if I want something to happen and I'm used to other people doing it for me and you are not doing it for me as I'm used to, I'm going to try and force you to do it. And one of the ways that we do that is we become violent. Violence as a way of trying to make you submit to what I want. Rather than me trying to get you to respect me enough to understand why I need you to help me in whatever it is that I need, I use the tactic of fear. I make you afraid of me so that you can do what I tell you, regardless of whether you want to or not. So these are some of the issues that we find when we're looking at violence. It's more about looking at extending an element of responsibility. Something that I'm responsible for, I want you to do it.
This guy is pissed off just because his sister got beaten up. But I'm saying he has someone who's next to him.
Absolutely.
Who has a blue eye and the hand is on a sling. And she's saying, no, this thing, you do it on me every day. Why today? It's karma. So, Valerie, can you take us through different forms of violence? Because there's someone who's watching maybe from Gokwe, someone who's watching from wherever, and they are involved in different form of violence, and they feel like it's okay. Because you look at this in our culture, our granny, our grandmothers, and so forth. They grew up under patriarchy. Patriarchy says your wife is your child. And the Bible says, spare the rod and spare the child. So kids are beaten to power, left, right, center. And when you get married, socialization says, your wife, they are your kids. So if ever they err, you have to what? Beat them up. So can you take us through just briefly on different forms of violence so that one can know that, no, this is not just a happening. It's not part of nature. No, it's something that I should be worried about.
It's true that when we speak of GBV, we typically think of the physical aspect of it. Perhaps because that's what we can see. That's what has evidence most of the time. And for those that actually have the guts to report these things, these are the ones that are reported because we can actually have something to show for it, right? So there's people out there that will say, no, I don't beat my wife. I don't lay my hands on a woman. But that person could be emotionally abusive. So emotional abuse and psychological abuse also qualify as forms of gender-based violence, in which words most of the time are then used to control and to subdue and to make the other one feel worthless and useless, just to bring somebody down. And again, it comes back to the issue of control and dominance. You feel that as a partner, you've got to control your partner for whatever reason. Maybe it's a question of low self-esteem. Maybe she's earning more than you. Maybe you are insecure and you feel that she might leave you. So you find ways of trying to pull her down and making her feel like she cannot do without you. So you can actually do that emotionally without using anything physical. Okay, it can take on sexual abuse as well as a form of GBV, and that's also quite very common.
Waldred, when you talk about sexual abuse, I'm married maybe, or I have a girlfriend. Then I feel like, you know what, my blood is boiling. I just wanna go down the business. So if she refuses, am I not guaranteed the honor to say no? As long as the contract says I'm still yours, I have to get it anytime.
For your own information, as long as it's not consensual, it's abuse. There is rape within marriages. You can actually rape married partners. My husband can actually rape me, and if my memory serves me right, that's actually an offense that's punishable by law right now in Zimbabwe if I do report it. But unfortunately, again, if I'm to be raped by my husband right now, I'm not going to report it. It's one of those things that just go unreported, but it's there, okay? Then we also speak of the other cases of child marriages, arranged marriages, and actual rape. There was a documentary some time back in which a child, a 14-year-old, I think, was actually being abused by an uncle who was taking care of her. And apparently he said it was his right, because he was buying her food, he was clothing her, he was taking her to school. So it's things that happen in so many other ways that qualify as gender-based violence. And why we speak of it as gender-based, because often it brings out the power imbalance that's there between the different sexes in our society. And as you said, it being patriarchal then entails that it's usually the men and boys that do this to girls and women. It also can be in the financial form, in which the male partner or intimate partner then controls the financial resources in this relationship to a point where the woman has no access to even the basic necessities, just so that he feels dominant, so that he feels like he's in control, so that she comes back to him and asks for everything for everyday use. And in that way, then you then feel powerful and you feel like, I'm the man. So you might not be beating your wife like the other men are doing, but check yourself. Maybe emotional, you're saying the wrong words and you're actually bringing somebody down every day to a point where they can get into depression. It can be sexual. The moment you force yourself on somebody and they're not a willing partner to it, a willing participant, that's violation, that's abuse.
That's scary. So every time now you should use a PIN code. Can I? Well,
you better.
well, after break we're gonna talk about, is violence really necessary? Is it a proper mechanism for resolving conflicts and any other? So we'll be back. Stay tuned. Valerie, the points that you were bringing,
Hard facts, huh?
no, it's not that. It's not that. No, people get me right. I'm not saying that I've been a perpetrator somehow, but I'm just worried, because there's some things that we've been taking for granted.
Absolutely.
And I do believe that violence has been used as a tool of one, as you're mentioning the fact that for sometimes you'll be saying, for my girlfriend, or for my wife, or for my child to respect me, I should somehow, be violent, beat them up, and so forth. At times you'll be trying to say, if I scare this person, she won't cheat on me and all that stuff. But beside the fact, we want us to just try to trace back. You don't wake up and become violent. I do believe it's like that. So, myth is violence something that is somehow enculturated as you are growing up, or something that you meet at a bus stop and say, "Hey, violence, where are you going? Come, get into my bag and ride with me." Just take us through that.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. You touched on this society being patriarchal, yeah, to the point that the men in the society are given this right to be in control of their families. Okay, so what we're looking at here is from the moment you have that position that you are in control, and if your child misbehaves, you feel you have to discipline them. If we had to use that
the Bible says, the
word.
good book says so.
Right. So we'll come back to the issue of discipline. So we find a situation where our society generally, whether we are conscious of it or not, we actually condone the idea of violence. People fighting on the street, we actually stand and watch. Yeah. Husband and wife fighting, we don't get involved. So when you don't challenge those things, essentially you are saying it's okay. So this is what we have done as a society. We are still doing that because, even between the three of us, if we hear about a child being beaten up, we think it's okay. We have been beaten up growing up, so what's the issue there? Yeah. So issues of violence stem from that early age where you learn that the way to deal with things is through violence. You beat him up, you beat her up to get your way, because that's what we see dad doing. Dad beats us up to get his way, because we don't seem to understand why we are being beaten up. Yeah, I've gone to the shops, I came back late, or I came back with the wrong thing, and I'm getting beaten up. But I'm not understanding, why can I not be spoken to understand what it is that is expected of me, rather than being beaten up? So without us understanding what we're actually doing, we are teaching our children and our society to be violent. So then we become surprised when this violence is now happening in families, in these relationships, and people are getting to kill each other because they no longer have control over, where do I stop with this violence?
On that note, so if I grew up being beaten up, when I grow up, I want to take the seat of the king.
Absolutely.
To be the one who's the punished.
That's a normal thing. For you, that's normal.
Okay.
Because you've grown up seeing it.
So, Valerie, are we not allowed to discipline whosoever that are within our reach? What's the concept of discipline in all this? Because the parent to child, then there's it sprouts to husband to wife.
The question of discipline is a very controversial one. There definitely is discipline, and it should be there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to raise these kids to become functional human beings at all. But I agree with Mertha in that, in using any physical means to discipline even the child, they have to understand why it's being done. So that's where the tricky part is now, where if that doesn't happen, I don't think you are really solving anything. There has to be a verbal element to it in which you're gonna say, look, I'm gonna smack you if that's what you want to do, if that's what you believe in, because you went to the shops and you came back late, or because in coming back late, I was afraid that you were going to get stolen or you were going to get abused or whatever. But half the time it just happens and there's no explanation. And I don't know, Metha.
On that note, as we are deliberating on that note, it takes me back, because I just want us to sum up something. So we are saying this element of discipline when it comes, like, we are having a discussion, the more like we are having a conflict or we are having a disagreement with a partner or whatever, then Valerie is saying all those nasty words to break my spirit. And I'm trying by all means to say, no, Valerie, can we not? Valerie is, because at one point, certain somebody was saying, you can offer a man money, food, beauty, and everything. But if you don't save respect or on the table, there will be always those problems. So is it an issue that, because when you talk about discipline, you are trying to command respect. When we talk about everything that leads to violence, we are trying to command respect. Even the one who wants to be controlled, they are trying to command respect. But now I'm saying for the future, isn't there a way that one can walk away from it before it becomes violent? Because I do believe there are stages. One doesn't just appear and just smack you, but there are signs to say, this person is about to beat me. Why can't you just try to retreat? Try to be the one to say, okay, let me humble myself and just avoid this whole nasty situation of someone smacking you, slap kick.
I think that would apply if it's a situation that includes provocation, as we say, in which maybe there's a verbal altercation. We're having an argument, which then escalates into physical. And at times we actually exchange blows, I can actually punch you once or twice in return. But by virtue of you being more powerful than me, sometimes you overpower me, and in the end, I'm the one that suffers the most. But let's bear in mind that not all cases are like that. In some cases, perpetrators of GBV are not provoked at all. I don't know where you grew up, but where I grew up, I remember there was one particular household in which we'd hear that on some days, he'd just come in from work and he'll just smack the kids for the slightest reason. Probably showing that he had a bad day. We don't know what happened at work. Maybe he's actually going through some other stresses in his life that people are not aware of.
Maybe he's a supporter of a certain team.
Possibly.
If your team loses, everyone is in danger.
Maybe he's experiencing abuse himself in the workplace because it happens. He's being harassed by his bosses or his supervisors. He comes back home with all that baggage and then he lets it out on his children and his wife. Unfortunately, it happens. So not all cases will include provocation. So let's bear in mind that at times there is no logical explanation as to why the perpetrators are engaging in this violent behavior in whatever form, whether it's sexual or financial or whatever. But there might be something in their own personal circumstances that we will never know that then makes them behave like that or resort to violence. Because sometimes you actually see that there really wasn't anything to hit his wife about, but she's bashed, and like in that clip, we don't know why she was in hospital, but it could be a very silly reason. But then if we actually have the chance to dig back into his day from the moment he walked out of the house and went to work, we can find out something that has nothing to do with
okay. This discussion is not gonna end as much as violence is not even packing its bags in our homes, and we are within the course of lockdown, and most of the people they are at home. So it's tricky. It's an issue that is sensitive because the now GPV numbers they are increasing on a daily basis. So before we could sum up, my question is there anything that can be done in relation to the subject matter so that we can reduce the numbers? We'll respond after we go on a water drinking break. So it's with a heavy heart that as we speak, someone is being beaten to a pulp. Someone is in hospital right now, hospitalized, and some have been buried, and some will be buried, and some are still going to incur the same thing that we're talking about. So the $1 million question being, what's the way forward as a society? Because many organizations have run with campaigns, keep the promise, blah blah blah, stop abuse, make it stop, and it's endless. So much money has been poured into these campaigns, but every day this thing is happening before us. Meta.
So these are very complex issues. I was listening to Valerie when she was talking about how the element of respect, the element of discipline. Those are the two I just want to focus on at this point. Going back to the society, going back to our culture, that we are a patriarchal society. So as a man, I don't need to do anything to earn respect. I expect to be respected.
Okay.
That's the first point.
By virtue of being a man.
By that virtue, I expect to be respected. So that's part of the problem, because we then don't do respectful things to maintain that respect. So if I get married to Valerie and I'm in the house with her, I expect her to respect me, whether or not I am doing anything worthy of respect. And this is part of where the problem starts. So if I'm the man of the house, the father of the house, who's supposed to have the control of my family, and I am not aware of what I'm supposed to do to earn respect, because respect is earned. Patriarchal society has, unfortunately, just passed on that respect to somebody who doesn't warrant having that respect, because he hasn't done anything to earn it. And that we need to look at as a society to say, what does that actually mean? So that's the first bit that we need to think about. Because if I don't do anything worthy of respect, how then do I expect Valerie to respect me? What then happens next is I then command to be respected. I expect to be respected. I force her to respect me, regardless of the fact that I come home drunk every night, I don't pay the children's school fees, I don't bring any groceries home. I still want her to respect me. So these are some of the problems. Moving on to the next point that we spoke about. She spoke about discipline. So I find that word quite fascinating, in that whenever we hear that word, what we think about is smack, right? I want to take you to thinking about this word differently. You spoke about the good book earlier on. Jesus had 12 disciples. Disciples come from that word discipline. Okay? They followed him. Right? So the word discipline actually means a way, following. Yeah? How something is done. Psychology is our discipline, because we follow ways of psychology, how psychology is practiced. Media and creativity perhaps is your discipline, right? So that's what discipline actually means, is what is the way. So when you are disciplining a child, it's about showing the child the way. It's not about beating him up. So we need to understand that. We need to understand the discipleship that comes with the word discipline. It's about me showing you how something is done. So if a child is making a mistake, disciplining him is showing him how it's supposed to be done. If you went to the shops, you came in late, I then show you what could have gone wrong, talk you through the discipline,
motivate you for tomorrow to come in.
Well, yeah, obviously, it's to do with, do we even understand what we are trying to do here? majority of us don't even understand the purpose of life. Why are we here? Yet we are supposed to lead our children to that purpose. This is where problems come in. We don't even know what we are supposed to be disciplining our children to. Because if we don't know the way to wherever, if I come in and I'm trying to go to the shops, you don't know the way, how can I follow you? So this is where that element of respect comes in. Dad knows where he's going, where we're going. So we're going to follow him. Yeah? So that's where the discipleship comes in, the discipline element comes in. So we need to start thinking about those things differently. We need to start understanding where we're going. What are we trying to achieve? One, as an individual, what do I want? What do I need? Where am I going?
Once you're left with a second. Mm-hmm. Go on, we are left with a second to sum up the point.
So this is what I'm saying. We need to rethink what is it that we are doing as a society, as a community, and as individuals. Where are we going? And how do we get there? How do we convince others to come along with us without having to force them to?
Okay, Valerie, your last word.
Okay. I think what we need to understand is, as he said, what we can do differently to change the scenario. Like we said, GBV is happening globally, it's affecting everybody in a way. So it doesn't just affect that woman or that man that are in this scenario. It affects us. It's got ripple effects into the whole society. So as he said, we've got to identify the things that we can do differently. I know we've got our cultures, our values and norms that are deep inside us that we can't take out overnight. But you and I and whoever's watching can actually take a moment to think and see what they can do differently. If you are a victim, if you're a perpetrator, understand what exactly you're doing. And in doing this, like we're saying, like he said earlier on, I think, this is something that can be put into our children as we raise them. So in allowing my son or my daughter to watch you beating me up every day, what are you doing? Think about that. What are you doing to your children? What are you teaching your children? Okay. And in maybe every time that I report that I've been beaten up, and then tomorrow morning I go and withdraw the charges. In doing that, what am I doing as well? Is this man going to reform? As the perpetrator, as the man, understand what motivates you to be this person that does this, whether it's financial, sexual, physical, whatever. Understand your reasons. I know every day we deal with our own frustrations that we have to juggle in the various spheres of our survival, of our lives, okay? So some of these are just pressures that build up upon us that make us vent or just erupt and be violent towards other people. Unfortunately, usually our significant others. So take a moment, think, and just see what you can do differently. I believe there's a way to solve everything that actually helps everybody involved. So yeah, there's so much to say, but there is something that can be done.
Just to add on something that you just said.
2 seconds.
When you're saying somebody goes and reports a crime, and the following day they go and withdraw the charges, there are certain crimes that once reported, the state has a duty, whether you withdraw the charges or not. So those are some of the things we need to look at and say, what has the state done when this was reported? Because again, it's not just about one person. It's so complex. If I beat you up today, who am I likely to beat up tomorrow? So you may withdraw the charges, but the next person might not, because they might not have a chance to do that.
Well, we heard it loud and clear. The thing is, at times, you just have to walk away. If the relationship is sour, you feel like, oh, this one, if you are married, and violence is served every day for breakfast, lunch, and supper, walk away before we sing that last song.
Is it easy to walk away?
It has to be easy, other than walking you into your grave. I think that's the way.
Absolutely.
Try to walk away. Guys out there, violence is not the answer. Try to talk things. Striking a balance. This is your show. We're trying to tame things, talk about things so that we can maintain a balance between good and evil. Stay tuned.
Is that for me?